Welcome to the Couple of Punts YouTube channel. You don't see us here very often, but we're here to discuss something very, very interesting. Very, very interesting indeed. Deshaun Watson might be traded. We'll give you a second to kind of let that sink in. But Deshaun Watson is a man who could be traded this offseason. I'm Ross Williams with a Couple of Punts. Harry Dennis is right here, also from the Couple of Punts. What do you make of this colossal news?
This is it's incredible how quickly this has potentially snowballed, because we've all know how dysfunctional the Texans have been, but Deshaun Watson has always been happy. And considering this is essentially started on Sunday when the JJ Watt video of Deshaun Watson telling JJ Watt, I'm sorry we wasted one of your years. We sit here on Friday, there's not even rumours anymore. There's reports that he's unhappy and he wants out.
Yeah, it all started last night, didn't it? From Ian Rappaport, he tweeted, Texans quarterback Deshaun Watson extremely unhappy with the organisation after owner Cal McNair informed he would be involved in the GM and coach hiring process and provide feedback, but then did neither in the hire of GM Nick Caserio from the Patriots, sources say. First thoughts on that is it's kind of unheard of for a quarterback to be involved in those kind of discussions. Like, I'm not even sure Brady was at the Patriots, Rodgers in the Pat. It doesn't really happen. So I think the first mistake that's been made from the Texans side is offering him that in the first place, because I don't think that was even an issue, really. But it is clear there's some quotes that have come out from way back at Thanksgiving when he was asked about it. They kind of banged on about the fact he's going to be involved in these discussions, and he wasn't. It's just another cock-up from the Texans, isn't it?
It is. Don't promise what you can't deliver. It's really an easy thing to do. You should not have promised him that. I know, as you just said, it's kind of unprecedented. The only person I can ever probably think of is Peyton Manning, because he essentially ran the entire Colts organization. But apart from that, no, Tom Brady hasn't done it. Big Ben hasn't done it. Drew Brees hasn't done it. No one in the kind of the history of the NFL has had that much power at quarterback apart from Peyton Manning. So it's just really bizarre that they promised him this. And even if you did promise him it, you can just let him sit in on the Zoom meetings.
Yeah, because that's the thing. That's what Rap Sheet was quite keen to discuss. It wasn't so much the actual hiring. Obviously, they've got Nick Caserio from the Patriots, who's essentially Bill Belichick's right-hand man, has been for all these years. We'll get to that a little bit later. It's not so much the fact they've hired him. It's just the process overall, which he's upset about. And it is interesting the timing of this as well, because obviously nothing's really been said about this in the last few days. Obviously, they've been talking to coaches, talking to GMs. It is very interesting that this report's come out just hours after it became pretty evident that the Houston Texans were not talking to Eric Bieniemy of the Kansas City Chiefs. Probably the number one guy in terms of offensive coordinators in the league who are going to be a head coach this year. He's going to be a head coach somewhere. I thought it was absolutely nailed on Houston were going to talk to him, and they're pretty much the only team in the hunt that haven't. That's really weird, isn't it? And the fact that this Watson report's come out just a few hours after that doesn't bode well. There's some real... This report's genuine. It's really genuine, this, isn't it?
It is. It was reported by Mike Florio of PFT yesterday, and then these Rappaport tweets kind of confirmed it. But that's incredible to not even have Eric Bieniemy on your interview list. He's part of one of the most potent offenses we've seen at the moment. He's learned under Andy Reid. He's doing wonders with Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson talk. They're the same draft class. They're good friends. They're going to discuss. Patrick Mahomes has probably gone, Eric Bieniemy's a bit good, and Deshaun Watson wants that because he's seen how good Patrick Mahomes can be. This season is the easiest to ever interview someone. It's a Zoom call.
Yeah,
it's a Zoom call, and you can have Deshaun Watson watch it as a silent partner, even if you have no intention of hiring Eric Bieniemy. As the Texans do, that in itself is bewildering. Just give him a Zoom call. It's so easy. You can blag to Deshaun Watson that you want to go in another way. You're really impressed by Arthur Smith of the Titans, whose name's been thrown around quite a bit. Or if you want to go defensive, Robert Saleh,
who they also haven't spoken to, by the way.
They haven't spoken to Saleh.
No, apparently that was in the same report. Apparently, I don't believe Robert Saleh was spoken, unless he has been today. Essentially, at the time, I don't believe Robert Saleh was spoken to either. When you've got a rush defense that bad, that something's not right.
To not talk to the hottest coaches. You don't have to hire them, but you have to do your due diligence, because as well, even if you talk to Eric Bieniemy, you can pick his brain about what the Chiefs think about the Texans.
Exactly.
They played each other, Exactly. Same with the 49ers.
It's really strange. It is really, really strange. And obviously, it's not the first strange situation to come out of Buffalo, to come out of Houston, should I say, in the last kind of 8 to 9 months, is it? Obviously, there was a big trade in the offseason. They've got previous. Yes, that was the Bill O'Brien regime, which is slightly different. Obviously, he's out there now, but the D-Hop trade, we've talked about that at length on the Couple of Punts podcast. It was a disaster, essentially. It really was. So, yeah, there is precedent for this. So let's talk about what we're here to talk about, essentially, which is the prospect of Deshaun Watson. Could he actually move on this year, just a few months after signing one of the most lucrative contracts from quarterback ever, second most ever behind Patrick Mahomes, 4 years, $156 million. He signed the dotted line for Houston. This would be the biggest trade in NFL history by an absolute country mile, wouldn't it? And I'm not going to go out on a limb on the YouTube video and say that I think he's going to be traded, because he shouldn't be by any means. There's no way he should be traded, but we've got to have the discussion because it's right there in front of us. The facts are there. And if he is even more disappointed than we think, Deshaun Watson is incredible, and he's a guy who's thrown 4,800 yards this year, led the league. He's put himself in that elite category of top 5 quarterbacks this year. But if his heart's not in it, if his head's not in it, that's not a guy you want on your roster. So it is a real possibility. How realistic is it, Harry, that he moves on?
I mean, you just hit the nail on the head there. You don't want anyone on your team not giving 100%, let alone your franchise quarterback, the leader, the face of your team. You can't have him not pulling 100%. And Deshaun Watson is a top 5 quarterback in this league. Probably around that 5 mark, but he's in there. We've never seen that a quarterback that good be traded before. We've seen the likes of Joe Montana leave late in his career. Steve Young had a trade. Peyton Manning, Tom Brady have gone through free agency. They haven't been traded. This is quite incredible. But it's weird just how possible it is when you look at the salary cap and his contract. As Ross said, he signed a 4-year, $156 million contract in September this year, September the 5th. So that might seem to people that there's no way he's going to be tradable. He's going to have a lot of dead cap. It's not. His base salary for 2021 his actual salary is $15,940,000. Of that, the Texans only have $21,600,000 in dead cap. So realistically, to get rid of him, yes, you are not having Deshaun Watson on your roster anymore, but you only have to pay an extra $5 million. And for teams picking him up, you get to pick up Deshaun Watson for this year for under $16 million.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, really.
Incredible.
When you look at it in those terms. It's $5.6 million worth of dead cap in 2021 if they do let him go, which seems like a lot of money, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not. If you look at the contracts around the league, like Matt Ryan, for example, Wentz, Stafford, like a guy, maybe not so much Stafford, but these top guys, that's minimal. That is really minimal to release a guy like this. It really is. And in terms of teams trading for him, we're about to discuss the teams who could be in there, who would be interested. Almost every team should be interested because the cap hits against them ain't too bad either. They're really not. He'd count under 11 million on the salary cap in 2021. For a team picking him up, it'd be 10.54 million in 2020. That's nothing. For a guy of his level, that's absolutely nothing. Rises significantly then, don't get me wrong, 35 mil in 2022, 37 mil in 2023, then for the final year it'd be 32 million. But we are expecting, the salary cap might take a little drop this year because of everything that's going on at the moment, but there will be a pickup. There will be a pickup after that when things get a little bit back to normal. They're big numbers, but they're not ludicrous. They're really not ludicrous. And for a team who's kind of on the brink and just kind of needs that final part, it's an option. It's an option, isn't it? So, without further ado, I'm going to throw it to you to start with. What is the best theoretical, hypothetical landing spot for Deshaun Watson?
That's a good question. Just for a reference point, as of this minute right now, 17 teams in the NFL have enough cap space in 2021 to take him on without jigging around their cap space, which they always do. So it tells you there's a large percentage of the leagues that could get him, as opposed to who probably should get him. If you talk about the roster that's there and the fact that they've got picks to give, you've got to look at the Miami Dolphins. We're not out on tour. But this is Deshaun Watson, and you've got 2 first-round picks. including the pick that the Texans gave to you for Laramie Tunsil. So that's you've got the potential there to save face, draft the Justin Fields, draft a Zach Wilson, Trask, Mike Jones, whoever you fall in love with throughout the process, and still potentially have a later on pick. And you trade him out of the AFC South, which is never a bad thing.
I agree. And it is genuinely a coincidence that I'm wearing this colour as well. But it kind of makes sense to me. Look, let's be honest. Let's not throw Tua under the bus too much.
Yeah.
I don't think that's fair because he's only had half a year, essentially. They should have made the playoffs this year. They really should have made the playoffs, that team. That was too good to not be in the playoffs. And let's be honest, if Ryan Fitzpatrick plays week 17, well, no, they probably don't, do they? Because it's Buffalo Bills. But there's games they should have won, which they didn't.
They don't go out with a whimper because they went out.
They did,
it was,
yeah.
A lot of this league is what have you done for me lately? And they were embarrassed against a divisional rival.
Yeah, they were. And look, I think Buffalo would have still probably beaten them in fairness in that final game, but they'd have had a much better chance of a better quarterback in, and that's the fact. That's the facts of the matter. And there's games they would have picked up with Deshaun Watson, the team. There's no question about that. But yeah, it's the ammo they've got. It's the ammo they've got. The fact that they can literally give back the picks that Houston sent them originally for Laramie Tunsil is huge. It's huge. We're talking about the third overall pick in the draft here. We're talking about, I think it's 18. There's also 2 seconds. There's also a second involved in that deal. Bear in mind, this is the Houston Texans team who do not draft until the 3rd round this year. And that is a team with holes. Let's be honest. They've got the key already, which is the reason why we said at the start of this podcast they shouldn't trade. They shouldn't. Because they have the key component to a great team. They do. But they have nothing around him. They have absolutely nothing around him. They can't win a Super Bowl with just Deshaun Watson. It's as simple as that. You can't. They're going to need some ammunition. They're going to need those picks. If they could pick up 3, 18, I think it's 35, something like that, all of a sudden get this hammer, probably a first next year too. All of a sudden there's a direction there. There's a direction for the Texans under a new regime, under a new GM, under a new head coach. Hey, maybe Miami threw Tua in there as well. Maybe Tua's involved in the deal. It's a possible. Maybe they don't want him because if you've got the 3rd overall pick, you've got the option to pick up Zach Wilson or Justin Fields, don't you?
Maybe they give him potentially the 18th overall pick and Tua. So maybe they go and get Tua, another wide receiver, maybe a stud on the defensive end, maybe something like that. But it's a genuine possibility. It could happen. Maybe it works as well for Tua to get a new scenery because he's not that he's never going to break Ryan Fitzpatrick's shadow, but the fact that Ryan Fitzpatrick's gone in this year and has kind of won more games than Tua this year, that's going to linger over him for a while.
Oh, for sure. And yeah, I kind of like it. I just kind of like the move. And you said about that. I think that 3rd overall pick would have to go back no matter what. It would have to. Tua's value is Tua. I mean, you'd have to say, would Tua be a 6th overall pick in this draft right now? I'm not so sure.
Very good question.
I'm not so sure. For that reason, I think the 3rd pick would have to go. Absolutely. But Miami is a very, very interesting spot. And that's just because of the great position Miami have put themselves in right now. We've talked about it all season, really, in terms of the ammunition they've kind of got and the team they've already got on the field itself. They're going to be in all kinds of these conversations, no matter the player, just because they can be. They can
also go out and get Tua and another free agent because they've got the 6th or 7th most cap room in the NFL. They've got $32 million without jigging anything around.
Yeah. So that's a very, very interesting landing spot. And there's a few more. There's a few more who could well be in the sweepstakes. As I say, every team in the NFL essentially would have an interest in a guy who might even be a top 3 quarterback, depending on who you ask. What about the New England Patriots? Sticking with the AFC East theme. Casario's just gone over. He is now the GM in Houston. He has been Bill Belichick's right-hand man. He's been the guy. He's not been the GM, but he's been the GM, essentially. That's the word from Foxborough. I mean, they need a quarterback, don't they? They need a quarterback in a big, big way. Could you see this? Could you see this at all?
I could because it's Bill Belichick, but it would be so hard for the rest of the NFL to watch Deshaun Watson going to Bill Belichick. It would be. It'd
be hard for me as well.
I wouldn't
like it.
Cap-wise, it works because the the Patriots have the fourth most cap room in the NFL. They've got almost 60 million in cap room. But with regards to what they can offer, there's not a lot there. You know, it's potentially talking about almost every pick they've got in 2021 and a couple in 2022 because they're picking. Where are they picking? They are picking 15th. So a couple, you know.
But is that worth it? Would they do that?
It would have.
It's not unheard of for teams to throw a whole lot of picks from one draft class straight in.
It's not. It would have to be everything they've got essentially. Maybe a player as well. I don't know who, but it's hard because, you know, Nick Caserio might be able to broker a deal.
I think that's
yeah. He might be able to give him a little bit of a discount. And the Texans, as you've seen, they've been incompetent in this hiring process. Why not give him to Bill Belichick? Why wouldn't they do that? Why am I even thinking that they won't do that?
Yeah, that's it. It's not even so much the discount. It's just the fact that the dialogue can be opened so easily with that one. And it's just they're a WhatsApp away in that one. You know, it's very, very simple to get that deal at least talked about, if not over the line. So the Patriots are a real possibility as well, and that would hurt me to my core, but it is a realistic possibility. I say realistic. None of this is realistic, if we're being honest, but it's just fun to talk about, isn't it?
It is.
Two more I want to discuss. First up, how about the San Francisco 49ers? Now, Watson in that offense would be terrifying. Watson in the Kyle Shanahan offense would be really something special. And do you know what? The Niners have shown something towards the stretch, down the stretch, should I say, towards the back end of the season, kind of from like week 14, 15 onwards. They've had CJ Beathard at quarterback. They've had Nick Mullins at quarterback. They've been in games. They've been winning games. They've done pretty well. They beat the Cardinals. There's a team there. There's still a team there. They've obviously underperformed in the Super Bowl last year. Far from that this year. But even with not a great deal at quarterback, they've put something together at a certain time this year that's not consistently. If you throw a top elite quarterback in that team, I think they're right back up there. They're right back up there. And I think Watson would like it. I think this is the movie. I think this is probably the one he'd probably go for, if I'm honest, out of all these options. I think he's the one that probably the most attractive to him. And the caveat for this one is Jimmy Garoppolo is out of contract. And if they cut him, they save $24 million on the cap. Watson could just slide right in. They wouldn't even notice. It's interesting, isn't it?
It works. And they could just trade him. You know, they could throw that and the 12th overall pick because you don't have to draft a quarterback then. You know, you've got your franchise quarterback. And Jimmy Garoppolo's good. He might not be amazing. He might not be one of the most talented guys, but he can win games. He got to a Super Bowl last year. Yeah. And Deshaun Watson would jump at that chance to go and work with Kyle Shanahan. In that offense, he goes from having Will Fuller and Brandon Cooks to one of the best running attacks in the league, and George Kittle, who is arguably the best tight end in the league, second or first. Kelsey's had the better year. Kittle's been injured, but he can do everything. That's a real prospect, and it works cap room wise as well. As you say, they can essentially jettison his contract for like $2 million and take on the $15 million of Deshaun Watson. And they've got 32 million worth of cap space. They can potentially go and get someone else that Deshaun Watson wants. Maybe he really likes Will Fuller. Maybe they bring in Will Fuller.
Yeah. It's the more you talk about it, the more it kind of makes sense from Watson's point of view. If he is genuinely upset and genuinely wants to force a move, surely he's looking at red and gold. You'd think that'd be one he'd seriously consider. There's a few more, actually. I said there's one more. There's probably a couple more. The first one, New York Jets. The New York Jets, we've just got to talk about teams that need a quarterback right now. The New York Jets clearly need a quarterback, and we're sorry about that, Sam Darnold, but it is the case. It is the case, and Deshaun Watson's a hell of a step up, I'm afraid. Obviously, they hold the number 2 pick in the draft at the minute. General consensus is they're going to draft one in Justin Fields or Zach Wilson, but they could do that, or they could send that second pick to Houston because, you know, as much as Justin Fields looks great, as much as Zach Wilson's had a phenomenal year at BYU, they haven't played an NFL game. We have no idea what they're going to do when they take that field. We've seen busts before. It happens. We've seen Jamarcus Russell. We've seen these guys. It does happen. Could that happen? Could Deshaun Watson end up at the Jets?
Look, it could happen as well. Again, the Jets, maybe they get Eric Bieniemy, which is the big thing. You know, if they get the head coach and potentially the GM, if the one that Deshaun Watson likes, he's going to be way more open to go to there. The Jets as well, as bad as they've been this year, they've fully earned that second overall pick. They've got building blocks. They've got a franchise tackle. they've got an above average defense, and they've got the second overall pick, but they've got $70 million worth of cap room. There's a lot of room for flexibility on this roster. And, working the other way, you give him the second overall pick and potentially you give him Sam Darnold. Maybe you see something in Sam Darnold and you take him, and then you've got the second overall pick to get Sam Darnold a tackle, to get Sam Darnold a real outside weapon. It works both ways.
Yeah, obviously there's no value in the trade really because obviously he's out of contract, but it's an easy pickup, isn't it? It's an easy pickup for the Texans after they work something out beforehand. I think you made a good point actually about Bieniemy. We reference it to start with. The timing, kind of looks like if this is a real thing, if 2021 is 2021 and that's what and these kind of things happen, with the timing, it does seem that that's where he wants to go. It would appear Watson wants to go where Bieniemy goes. So maybe he just follows the coach. Maybe it's as simple and straightforward as that. If we're in the situation, maybe he follows where the coach goes. And they've had some dialogue before, and maybe it's all planned. Who knows? But yeah, if he ends up at the Jets, as you say, you detailed it perfectly there. The Jets, all of a sudden, from a terrible 2-14 football team, could be a hell of a lot better with Deshaun Watson on the team. Deshaun Watson adds what? It's been hard with the Texans, obviously, but he got the 4 wins. He adds 4 wins, doesn't he?
He does.
He adds 4 wins to your team. He really does. Final one, I think we should probably discuss when we get out of here. And it's the fun one, really, because of everything that's happened over the last few years. But it's the Chicago Bears. And we want to get your take on this because we know how much you love Mitchell Trubisky. Just days out from his playoff game against the Saints. He needs that pick-me-up from Harry Dennis. So do you think they should trade a quarterback to replace him?
Of course, Ross. What do you want from me here? What do you want from me? No. Yeah, obviously. Imagine Deshaun Watson with that defense. It's going to be hard because with returns of obviously draft picks and, they gave a lot of them.
It's going to be hard on all of these, let's be honest. I wouldn't even worry about that too much.
All right, we'll go with that hypothetically. If they can get that and re-sign Allen Robinson, David Montgomery seems to be coming along with that defense. That's a scary thought. And it just makes symmetry because it's, maybe Ryan Pace actually holds his hands up and goes, yep, I was wrong.
Yeah, that's probably the main worry with this one, whether he would do that because we know how stubborn they can be. But it's a possible. And there is precedent for the Bears because the Bears no stranger to a big trade. They brought Khalil Mack in 2 first-round picks. This will probably take 3 and change. I don't think – can anyone do 4 first-round picks? I don't know. But I think 3 first-round picks, probably a couple of seconds, any other leverage they've got maybe. But yeah, the fact they have precedent with the Khalil Mack, they are willing to be ambitious with these trades. They've done it before. So it is a possible. And I think, maybe the only stumbling block here, and it wouldn't really be a stumbling block, you'd hope, would be the stubbornness of, we got it wrong. We got it wrong in that draft. Everyone knows they got it wrong. They know they got it wrong deep down. It would be a crazy circle, wouldn't it, if Deshaun Watson ended up back in Chicago. And I don't know if you saw Twitter yesterday, but there's a million different Photoshop renders of him in different jerseys. Looks pretty good in the blue Chicago, not going to lie.
He does. He looks pretty... I think I've seen him in all 31 other NFL jerseys, to be honest with you, and he looks pretty good in a lot of them. He looks pretty good in Gotham Green. We just talked about the Jets. He looks really good in that kind of the Chicago kind of darker blue. He's going to look good in any kit he plays for because he's an incredible player.
Indeed he is. The final point in this, which I just want to make, I think it's quite an interesting one. Deshaun Watson actually has a no-trade clause in his contract, which is very interesting. However, don't panic, because that's not going to throw our dreams in the bin, because that's not how it works. That's not how these no-trade, because that definitely people will throw that in and go, he can't be traded anyway, he's got a no-trade clause. No. That's if the Texans want to get rid of him. He can step in. He can step in there and go, no, I want to stay. If he wants to move, he can move, essentially. He is he gets the final call on these trade situations. So yeah, that pretty much wraps it up. That is our take on one of the craziest stories we've seen so far. Post the 2020 NFL regular season, there's going to be many, many more to come, I'm sure, if this year's got anything to say about it. But yeah, Deshaun Watson, could he move? Let us know in the comments. Let us know where the best landing spot for him would be. Just throw the team you support in there, because that's probably what you're going to do, isn't it? Because he's so good. But yeah, from me, from Harry, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you later.
See you later, guys.